This is going to be a tutorial for how to create a POP display in Photoshop. This example is of a low volume display, meaning that there is not a lot of the specific product featured on the fixture. After selecting the product and brand I wanted to use for the display, I decided to start tracing some of the individual elements using the Photoshop line tool. You can always draw a shape by hand, but I wanted to trace an image that I had previously saved, so I brought up that image in a separate layer so that I could delete it after I finished tracing. The Photoshop line tool can be found under the rectangle tool category. You can adjust the fill and stroke by going to the top bar and selecting which one you want to adjust. But remember, after you create shapes with the line tool, you will have to merge them or group them so that they become one whole shape. In this example, there were some parts of other shapes that overlapped with another that I wanted to delete. So you can do this either by right-clicking on the shape and selecting Find Edges and then deleting the portion using a selection tool, or you can just use the eraser tool. One of the benefits of Photoshop is that you can move shapes and transform them any way you want, as long as you create an extra layer if you want to make sure you have a copy of the original. A helpful tool for creating your own background display images is the transparency tool. I used for this example 2 different images, flipped them, and then added transparency so that they became one solid image. The Transform Grid tool is also very helpful to make sure that your object fits inside of a different shape. So here I'm using the grid to make it look like the object is descending into the background. When deleting larger sections of an object or image when it's behind or overlapping something, I find it's more helpful to use the Polygon selection tool instead of the eraser tool. Since the shapes for this tutorial were made using the line tool, they're not able to be filled with color. However, this is a good opportunity to add extra depth by using a background image. When using the line tool to create a shape, you cannot change the color of the line after it's finished. So for these tech drawings, I decided to change the color of the dimension lines by altering the layer style and adding a red color overlay. To incorporate marketing into the sides of my display, I'm using images created by the brand for the specific product I selected and just filling in the empty spaces on the display. For this tutorial, I've created an example of a retail space where this product might be displayed. So I'm just using a standard makeup display counter and placing my display on top of it, as well as some other makeup, just to illustrate what it might look like in a store environment. A good trick to make something look like it's behind a layer of glass is to select the area that would be behind the glass and then alter the lightness using the hue saturation tool so that it's a little bit lighter. Finally, I'm going to show an example of what the POP document might look like when it's finished. It's always a good idea to include an interesting title page that both shows the brand logo and your own design aesthetic. When including your tech drawings, make sure that all of the writing is legible and that the dimensions of the display make sense for the retail environment. Be sure to include information about what the display would look like with marketing included. For this example, when I showed the display with product, I also included some information about each product, and there are 3 different views of the perfume since there are 3 different types. Finally, I included a page showing what my POP display would look like in a retail environment. A good tip for anyone creating a POP display design project is to make sure that all of your materials work cohesively together, and the portfolio should be well laid out and interesting to look at.